So if your brake pads are about this thin, you'll want to replace them. In this video, I'll show you how to replace all 4 sets and remove the sensors and put them back on. These sensors are only on the front left and back right. If it's almost worn, buy yourself a nice set of PBR Metal Masters, semi-metallic brake pads, low dust, and put them on. I like the Metal Masters because they're low brake dust and they work really well. I've made a couple slides showing the steps that I've taken to remove the brake pads and rotors and replace them with new rotors. You should probably replace it with new rotors or machine your existing rotors. You shouldn't reuse the old rotors because that'll cause a bunch of problems. You can download these steps from the description below. I'll put a PDF there so you can print them off if you want to use them. The sensors are only on the front left and back right. You don't have to buy new sensors if you don't break them, but if they are tripped, then they've been severed and that means you've got to buy new sensors. I'll show you the sensors first and then I'll show you the brake pad and rotor removal and reinstallation. Undo the wiring. Once you've got enough slack, you can take the brake pad right out and a flathead will just fit in right there and push up on it. Make sure when you slide the sensor back down onto it that the groove is on the front because that's the wire sticking out, and when the wire gets cut it knows that the brake pad has been worn out. It just slides right off that. If you're going to replace your sensor cable, just pop this box open and your sensor cable will just unplug there and plug in the new one. So once you've got this out, there's a clip underneath. So if you want to reuse the clip, you just put it onto the new brake pad in the same way. The existing sensor will slide right in and clip right in there. So you don't need to buy new sensors if you're replacing your brake pad with still this much life left on it. The reason I'm replacing all 4 sets is because the back is almost gone. I got it before the sensor got cut, so I'm going to reuse the sensors. You're not supposed to, but it's not a big deal. Alright, so we're going to take the wheels off and change the brake pads. And then lift it up. And then remove it all. You gotta give it a good kick. Real good kick. There you go. Comes right off. And as always, don't go underneath the car unless you've got a jack stand in place. Go and put your blocks in place. So these are your caliper locating pins, one on top and one on bottom. Thing with a plastic cap, so pop off the plastic cap. So take your 7mm Allen key and loosen it up. Make sure you tie up your caliper, otherwise your rubber hose will snap. To get this clip off, just pry along here, push it forward. Once you got the clip off, slide the caliper off. These are standard high dust garbage OEM brake pads. Here's old versus new. It's about 40% left or 35% left only, and I got dustless ones, reduced dust ones, so that the mags don't get all dirty. Here's the mag after like a week, so that's why I'm getting low dust brake pads. Otherwise you're gonna have a lot of dust like that. Now use a 6mm and remove your center nut or center bolt. Take your 16. So the wear indicator is on the front left and back right, so this one doesn't have it. Let's go remove that. So I got the caliper off with the rubber mallet, and once you take your caliper and your tires off, the trick to getting a good mating surface and making sure that it's on nice and flat, use New Finish, which is a solvent for rust, and a brass brush. Scrub this down, make it nice and clean. If you don't clean that off, it's going to be mounted crooked. Your tire's going to be mounted crooked, and then you're going to have uneven wear on your tire and vibrations and stuff. So once again, number 6, tighten it a bit, tap it, make sure it's on there nice and tight. Go ahead and remove the cap for the brake fluid. And when we press down on the caliper, it's going to try to leak out of there, so keep an eye on that. I wrapped a cloth around it just in case. Before you pop this thing off, just use a C-clamp, clamp here to there. You need to compress this all the way back to the down position, basically all the way until it stops, and that will allow space for the new to go in because they're much thicker than these ones. Use a C-clamp, the old brake pad, and slowly crank it back in to push this caliper back in. So I'm just going to use a clean tube and pipette it out. Make sure you clean these 4 points where the brake pads slide back and forth on. Make sure you clean them with new finish. That'll keep it from rusting. And make sure it stays nice and shiny. Make sure you use a brass brush. You don't want to use a file or anything that's going to abrade the steel, because if that gets scratched, it's not going to let the brake pad slide back and forth very well. It'll be the like the notch or the bump on the 870. So once you got it clean, it should be nice and smooth. If there's any roughness to it, go ahead and use a like 1000 grit sandpaper or something. Nothing too coarse, but 600 might do. So anyways, it's clean. The new finish is going to keep it from rusting again, and it'll make it slide nice and smooth. Put this thing back on. Take your 16 and tighten that up. You can clean your locating pins. Once they're nice and shiny, go ahead and use some synthetic brake grease on it. Today we're going to use the PBR Metal Masters, low brake dust brake pads. So you'll want to put some brake grease right here and maybe a little bit in there. It'll keep the noise down if you get squeal, brake squeal and stuff. Put your brake pad in. All it does is just get pushed in. Put the other side on and then slide it on. This thing just goes like that. Push on the center and slide it in. Now it's nice and tight. Put your locating pins in once you've greased them, top and bottom, and you'll be good to go. Stick your caliper locating pin in there. Use your 7mm Allen key and screw it in. After you got those nice and tight, put your two caps back on. Now we're ready to put the tire back on. Make sure you clean out all inside here, because that lip needs to mate up against this part. So if it's got any rust in there that's a little offset, this tire is going to be mounted crooked and it's going to wobble, create vibrations, and cause uneven wearing on your tire. Now when you mount your tire, make sure you go in a star pattern. This one, then jump across. Otherwise, and make sure you shake it around, hit it a couple times. Make sure it's nice and tight. So get a little tighter slowly. So each time jump across diagonally, get a little tighter and tighter. Go ahead and tighten it up some more. And that's it. Once you've got it torqued down to about 100 foot-pounds, it's nice and tight. By break-in, I don't mean B&E. I mean a break-in procedure for brakes. So after installing the new brake pad, go up to 40 miles per hour, slow down to 10, repeat that 10 times, allowing a quarter mile between cycles, and then drive for another 10 minutes to let your brakes cool down. And that makes the brake pad material go onto here, and then it'll be a creation and destruction of bonds between the brake pad material and the brake pad to slow down your car. If you don't break it in, it's going to be metal against brake pad, and that'll just grind your brake pads down to nothing, and you'll get a lot of dust and it won't be effective braking. To 40, slow down to 10. By that point your brakes should be broken in. If you still don't smell too much of a burning smell, you can can go ahead and do it a couple more times, but don't do it more than 15 times. If there's people on the road, just pull over and let them pass, and then you can continue on your way. Don't stop. If you stop, you'll bed an imprint into your brake disc, so you don't want to do that. You just slowly coast down to a roll. And if you have to stop at stoplights, try not to stop for too long, because again, it will bed in an imprint onto your brake disc. And you don't have to press super hard, but don't press too lightly either. Once you get out of your vehicle, it'll smell a little bit like a burning clutch, but not too bad. So that's supposed to happen. That's what happens when you transfer the material onto your brake disc. So when you swap out new pads, make sure you do that. If you get new brake rotors, make sure you clean the grease off them and bed them in. So that's how you change your brakes. Thanks for watching. I hope that helped.